Bitcoin is worthless artificial gold.
I would short it if there was an easy way to do it.
I think it's a scumball activity.
Bitcoin is the most superior monetary technology that has ever existed.
It's one of the crazier speculative stocks.
I think that the internet is going to be one of the major forces for reducing the role of government. The one thing that's missing, but that will soon be developed, is a reliable e-cash, a method whereby on the internet you can transfer funds from A to B without A knowing B or B knowing A.
What is a Bitcoin?
What is Bitcoin? What backs a Bitcoin? You put some of your money, real money, online, and it turns into Bitcoin.
I don't even know why we call them coins, except that they call it coins in the name.
I think Bitcoin has turned into a massive multiplayer online game where speculators are trying to out-speculate each other.
Is it a means of exchange or an asset class? I see you taking my real dollars, and then you give me virtual money in return.
Thanksgiving dinner, my grandmother asked me, what the heck is this Bitcoin stuff anyway, right? And I said to her, do you remember when Visa cards first came out? You were used to paying with cash or with a check, and then a Visa came out. It was this weird payment system that you didn't understand. And she said, yeah, I remember that. I said, well, Bitcoin is just the next evolution of another payment system.
Bitcoin. By now, you've probably heard of it.
The internet changed the way the world communicates. Bitcoin changes the way money works.
You can basically put a bank in your pocket.
Psst, wanna buy some secret stuff?
There is now a new note that people are starting to talk about, the Bitcoin.
The money of the future.
Bitcoin was created to provide an alternative to the banking system.
We are in the midst of a serious financial crisis, and the federal government is responding with decisive action.
Unlike most currencies, Bitcoins are issued according to a set of fixed rules. The idea was to create money whose value couldn't be manipulated by a central authority.
The government, no matter how many guns they draw, cannot change a mathematical problem. They can point their guns at 2 + 2, but it's always going to equal 4.
It's fascinating to imagine what it means to have global, decentralized money. And that's what's happening.
The Bitcoin payment system uses Bitcoins as its currency, so they both have the same name.
What is your opinion of disruptive digital currencies such as Bitcoin?
If you're looking for the idea that a currency doesn't really have to be something physical, it can be something that's virtual, that's the system we already have. You know, and if you want it to be, I want a way to make payments electronically, that's, you know, credit cards. I mean, so exactly what it is that this thing is supposed to be doing that we don't already mostly do.
Bitcoin is different from other fiat currencies in a couple ways, but not the way people think. So most people think it's different because it is a digital currency, but fiat currencies are also digital, right? So the dollar is a digital currency, the euro is a digital currency. They're all just ones and zeros in the banks of the world. So it's not that Bitcoin is digital that makes it unique. It's unique in that it cannot be created out of thin air. So dollars, euros, yen, these can all be created out of thin air by people who have permission to do so, which is generally a central bank. Bitcoin has no ability to create it out of thin air, so it is a scarce digital asset.
Unlike the banking system we currently use, where bureaucrats meet behind closed doors and determine and regulate the supply of new currency, mathematics and cryptography are used to regulate the creation of new bitcoins. The Bitcoin network is decentralized, meaning that instead of transactions and account balances being stored on a central computer or database, Bitcoin's ledger of accounts, more commonly known as the blockchain, is distributed across tens of thousands of computers around the world.
There's something called Napster. We all remember Napster. We could download music and movies from Napster, but after a while it got so big and popular, the government came in, shut it down because of copyright infringements. No more Napster, right? So then somebody created something called the BitTorrent network. What's this? This is a software people run on their computers that allows people to file share. So if you run the software, you can go to things like Pirate Bay or Views or BT Junkie, and you can download any music or any movies you want, and they can't stop it because it's not a centralized location. Well, Bitcoin is the currency that runs on the BitTorrent network. Why was gold and silver considered money for the last 4,000 years is because it took work and effort to make that nice, beautiful coin. They had to dig it out of the ground and refine it in the crucibles and the furnaces and stamp it into a nice, beautiful coin. And that took work. So you didn't have to trust anybody that they were going to work for you. The work was already done. Well, Bitcoin, proof of work, is the same thing, right? You have to hash away and solve all these math problems. You have to have the chips and the electricity and yada, yada, yada to create a Bitcoin. It costs today about $800 to make a Bitcoin.
I believe that Bitcoin has multiple levels of intrinsic value. The properties like being unconfiscatable, properties like this censorship-resistant value transfer that no one can stop you from sending. More importantly, what gives it intrinsic value is the productive capacity and the brain power of some of the brightest developers in the world that have chosen to work on this open source protocol. And this productive capacity of some of the brightest minds that are building it is what truly gives it value.
All Bitcoin transactions are cryptographically verified by thousands of computers on the Bitcoin network. These very powerful computers, known as miners, expend a massive amount of energy and processing power to verify the integrity of each and every transaction.
So the miners basically validate transactions. All these transactions are flying around, and they have not yet been formally vetted by the network. If the miner believes the transactions are valid, it will put them in the block, and the block then becomes part of the blockchain. And over time, that becomes the record of truth. And so what that means is that if you receive Bitcoin and a few blocks happen after you receive it, no one can ever take that money away from you because the blocks have been stuck into the blockchain, they can't be reversed, and you know that the money is truly yours.
The decentralized nature of the Bitcoin network eliminates a single point of failure and makes it impossible to be hacked or to be shut down. Bitcoin transactions are transmitted peer-to-peer without the need for a third party, meaning that the user is in complete control of their money.
It's impossible to be shut down. That's the beautiful thing about it. There is no place, there is no Bitcoin place. You can't shoot Bitcoin.
It has no center of gravity, it has no headquarters, you can't shut it down.
The only way you could is to shut off the internet. Your average person has absolutely no idea how their email works, but it works, and that's all that really matters. And Bitcoin's very similar to that. But as far as what I would do to tell people or describe to people who don't know about Bitcoin what it is, I would say it's a form of money that you can just use on your phone or your computer in today's digital age where everyone's on the internet that is much faster to send than most of the banks. And it has, for at least since its inception in 2009, risen in value.
For new users, the inner workings of Bitcoin can be quite complex and daunting. But what's important is how this revolutionary technology changes how money is transferred globally.
Right now, every single payment that you make to another person goes through an intermediary. Either PayPal or bank or Visa or MasterCard. And more importantly, the governmental jurisdiction decides if you're allowed to make that payment. That payment could be stopped halfway through, and then you have to try and get your money back. With Bitcoin, no one can stop it. The moment you decide to send another person digital value, you can just send it. And there is nobody in your way. There is no one that has to give you permission to pay another person money, and all they need is an internet connection.
This has the potential to displace the need for banks as a trust institution. If you and I exchange currency or have commerce using Bitcoin and it goes on the ledger on the blockchain, we don't need a bank to confirm that that is a valid transaction.
One of the differences between Bitcoin and the banking system is it doesn't require a third party to perform. When you make a deposit into a checking account or a savings account, you are actually loaning the bank your currency. They now have title to it, and they have a liability on their books to pay you back one day, but they get to do anything they want with it, and you have this intermediary, this third party, counterparty that has to perform for you to be able to get your currency back. Cryptocurrencies invert the power structure. It isn't a few people at the top controlling a whole bunch of people at the bottom. The power goes to the individual.
In the same way that the internet flattened access to information and allowed anyone in the world with an internet connection to learn basically anything they wanted to know and to communicate with anyone else on Earth, Bitcoin does that with money. So now anyone on the planet, no matter their age or the arbitrary geographic location in which they were born, or the arbitrary rules of the people that govern over them, that person can now engage economically with anyone else in the world directly. And that's profoundly powerful. You do not need a bank account to interact with Bitcoin. You do not need a bank account now to receive an honest payment from someone else in the world and know that the money is legitimate and good and can't be rescinded. So money now can't be censored. Any two people can send it between each other through Bitcoin.
He's gone, Kuiper.